All right, Linus, take it away.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to Taidu Studios live stream number 33. As always, we have our fearless leader, Sean Taidu Head, on screen. Say Ohio, Sensei.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
And I am your humble comptroller, Linus Ryume Callahan. And this is the 14th day of April, 2025. So for our U.S. listeners, happy Tax Day Eve, I guess.
That's right.
It's not a particularly happy day, but it turns out that the 14th of April is a dark day for numerous reasons. Do you know what happened on the 14th of April?
Oh, somebody died.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln.
Oh,
This
jeez.
is the
Don't.
yeah yeah this is the day that Abraham Lincoln decided to take in a showing of the play Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And John Wilkes Booth shot him in the head. It turns out that Our American Cousin was a really popular sort of satirical comedy about life in America, but Lincoln getting shot in the head didn't do much for that play.
Yeah, it never gets played again, I'm sure.
It wasn't funny after that. You know what I mean?
No.
And yeah, and also another weird coincidence. Today is also the day that the RMS Titanic struck an iceberg and sank. So
So be
maybe just
careful.
stay
Yeah,
home.
just stay home, everybody. Be careful out there. It's a dangerous place.
Although on the positive side, this is also the day on which the Human Genome Project was announced that it was done in 2003. So it's not all bad, but I don't know. It just feels like the 14th is maybe a day to stay
Mm, absolutely.
home.
We do
Yeah.
have messages of condolence for Eric. His mother of 96 and a half years young has passed away. And but we are feeling we have condolence to you and your family. And but thank you for still being here and hanging out with us to enjoy Shakuhachi. She knew and loved the Shakuhachi just as much as you said. So hope you can continue to play Shakuhachi in her honor, and it would be a great way to remember her. So, we have a lot on dock today about Shakuhachi and learning some stuff. We have two new members. We have Dave Pangesa, who is now at the Chuden level, as well as Cody 4, who is welcoming in at the Shoden trial level. So thank you both for your support and enjoy those videos.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to see new members.
Hmm. New members. And that means the Shakuhachi community is growing. More Shakuhachi players is always a positive thing in my book. No matter what style, no matter what lineage, if you're playing Shakuhachi, it's all good. And Eric noticed my haircut. Thank you very much. Trying to get things a little bit shorter here. I want to say that the lady at the Ichiba, which is our kind of local farmers market, gave me the most wonderful compliment in Japanese. You know what it was, Linus?
No, no,
Yeah,
what
she
was it?
she said, "なんとなく."
Wait, wait, I have a guess. Did she say Nihongo Jozu?
No, she did not. I did not get Nihongo Ojozu. That didn't happen. Um, what happened is that she said, "なんとなく細くになった気がする," which means like for some reason I feel like you've gotten thinner.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's like that's a big deal because usually it's, "Oh, Sean, dekai na. You're so big." I was like, "How do you get that big?"
Yeah, I just for those who don't know, Nihongo Jozu is your Japanese is good. You're skillful at Japanese, and it is kind of a running joke for those of us living here in Japan. If you even manage to stumble through like, my name is, you know, boku no namae wa Linus desu. Someone will say, "Oh, Nihongo Jozu." You get to if you live here, you get to where you don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's actually a backhanded compliment be in because we usually the way it's used is because, oh, you are like you're trying and we really appreciate that is what that
Yeah,
means. But when
aren't you a with your one sentence of Japanese?
yeah, the one that I get a lot is Nihonjin yori Nihonjin, which means you're more Japanese than Japanese people. And so, but I don't know if that's a backhanded compliment or not. I haven't figured that one out yet.
Yeah,
So,
that one kind of feels like that feels a little bit like a "you don't sweat much for a fat girl"
yeah, it
kind of
could be. It could be. Yeah.
comment.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
indeed so. All right, so now I do want to mention that we have a really exciting video coming up on the channel, and so if you haven't liked this video, well, first like the video. Come on, it does how many calories does it take to burn to hit the like button? I think it's like a half a calorie. So hit that like
Mhm.
button. It doesn't hurt you. And then if you want to know about this future video coming up, you got to hit the subscribe button and then the notification bell. So do all those little things. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. Um,
Yep.
there's an interesting flute that came in that I'm currently working on for a video, and it is a flute by who knows, but it has beautiful maki on it, and it says the Singing Dragon, which is funny because it is Linus's name. But it's the other way around. It's Meidu is the name, and his name is Du Mei. Now, what's really fun also, so I did I'm doing this time when I sometimes get really good auction flutes. What I'll do is I get them repaired and then I showcase them. But this time, what I did is I showcased it before I got it repaired and played it and showed all the things that was up with it. And then it's going to be coming back soon, so you got the other half. So you're going to have to subscribe and wait for that video to come out because it's going to be interesting. And then I want to bring out something else that's really special because this is the first time that we're going to be doing a live Shakuhachi review today. So if
Wow.
you're excited for that, hit that like button because we're doing a live review today. Any questions, my good dear Linus?
Well, actually, there are a few things that have come up recently in the Discord, and
Yes.
the one that was dominating conversation for a bit there was the time of day that you practice, and
Oh, yes.
whether we have any theories about what's best, and also what research. I did a little look into what the research says on
Mm.
it. So, what are your thoughts, Sensei? When is the best time of day to practice?
I think we've talked about this before, and I think I'm gonna stick with my times as saying morning around 10 a.m. If I had it my way, I would be out in the mountains by 6 a.m. and then playing stuff in there. But the thing is that like today I had a class at 5, and then of course you have the live stream at 7, and then I have full classes after that from 8. So I mean I only had an hour to do other things around the house. So
Mm.
it's but if I could have it my way, I would probably be practicing up at 5 a.m. if I didn't have neighbors. But for the average person, I think the best time is 10 a.m.
Yeah, well, actually, the research supports that sort of. It doesn't, it doesn't specify a clock time, but the general consensus is that when your mind is fresh, when you are sharpest after a good night's sleep, makes it a little easier to focus on new material or on refining techniques. And this is yet another one of those instances where we ask the question and the answer comes back, and my answer is completely different.
You're like 1 a.m. after like a long
I
day's
would
work.
exactly. I would love to practice at like midnight, but I can't because I have neighbors and children. And so, yeah, I usually end up practicing sort of in mid morning as well. Another reason that they point to the mid morning time is that it supposedly is a time when people have a better ability to memorize and because your memory is improved supposedly in mid morning. And I just want to say that whoever did this study has never met me. That's not. I'm not really hitting on all cylinders.
Well,
First thing in the
the
morning.
other thing is too is that most people or everybody's different. It's kind of like when people say, "Oh, this diet works." Well, yeah, it works for maybe some people, but it doesn't work for all people. So,
Right.
I think different strokes for different folks, right?
The other thing they all sort of emphasized was that time is not the specific time is not as important as the fact that it's consistent.
Yeah, that's what I
And
would say too. Is the consistency is key.
And that
So,
consistency can be an actual, like, I practice every day at 10 a.m., or it could be a situational thing. I practice every day following a certain other event, like when I get home from work every day, whatever time that is,
mhm,
I practice something like that. But it does seem that consistency is very important.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
On the Discord, a lot of people were debating it, just basically came to the same conclusions that they would like to practice at different times than they do, but work and neighbors seem to dictate a lot of it.
all right. So let's jump into this flute before we get into other questions. Now, it's interesting that Eric said definitely a wide bore, and you would be wrong, sir. It is not a wide bore. It just looks like that. There is no lacquer, so this is a flute by a guy from Uruguay actually, and he's using local Uruguay bamboo. And so this is a flute by Anton Tenri, who is a student of my student. Now, this is locally sourced bamboo, and the way that he cures the bamboo is also a very interesting process. He uses salt water, which is
Okay.
very interesting. And so it's because it both dries out the flute, but it hardens it the same way too. This is a full, not just jinashi, but this is a hochiku. There is not even a little bit of lacquer on the inside. It is a clear bore, and if you look on the inside, you should be able
Wow.
to see some nodes. It's a little bit difficult to see in there, but there are some nodes that are still left in there. Um, the other thing I noticed is that the bore end is really big, right? That's a huge bore opening at the bottom there, which is definitely unique. It is a 2.4 or 2.4, 2.3, so it has the pitch of A, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so here, yep, it's an A flute. It is extraordinarily lightweight because there's nothing on the inside. Now, the Utaguchi is cut without any inserts whatsoever, so it's definitely in that kind of Watazumi Hochiku style. And then the holes are straight on. There's no offset holes on them either. So so for me, because the holes are not offset, it's actually quite difficult for me to play. So that's one of the downsides of it. So I won't feel like I'm going to be able to give it a complete justice by playing it. Um, he also makes this kind of protective cap as well, which is also from the bamboo. Puts a little bit of cork in it as well. So when you place it on top, it completely covers it up just beautifully. And so it's a great innovative way to protect the caps on it. And a lot of other people do this as well. I believe Nick does this with his flutes and making caps like this. It's very nice. Um, so let's just get into the row and we'll kind of start from there. Try to get myself situated here. So my first thing about the I like the tone color of the flute actually. It does. I think there could be a little bit more depth to it because of the chambers being so open. I'm not getting a lot of back pressure, so the sound kind of just goes right out the flute. And typically with the jinashi, especially in those ones that have the nodes on the inside, you can get a little bit more turbulence. Ray is very nice. And so that row wanted to jump, and it had wanted to jump prior to as well. So pitch wise, it's also tuned in the modern style, but the balance of all the pitches are also very very nice. My biggest qualm about the whole thing is just that the holes are centered. My hands just aren't big enough to play that. So when the holes are straight on, it just makes it 10 times more difficult to play if your hands are not long enough, or hands or fingers are not long enough. the on my 3.0, like the 3.0 is not an issue because my arm length is fine, but it's the finger length that's the issue. The hole size on this flute is pretty standard. It's kind of like it's on the slightly larger end for hole size, but it's still definitely within the range of kind of like tradition. It doesn't go. There's no like amazingly like large hole size or anything like that. Um, so let's go ahead and just go into the quick little piece here. We'll just do a little bit of Honshirabe. All right, so my initial thoughts is I absolutely love the sound of tsude on this flute. And I think that the
Yeah.
midi notes are just absolutely incredible. Most notably, I think that the upper register, like here, like that sounds just absolutely fantastic, especially when you get that kind of otsu into kan register. I think it's a very successful flute. And if his flutes are up to this standard, watch out, Uruguay, new Shakuhachi makers in town. Um, how did it sound for you, Linus? What are some of the things you noticed?
It's like extremely colorful. Whoa, why am I feet like crazy?
Yeah, very, very colorful. I think that the Muraiki really shines on it. But what I thought was my favorite part about playing this flute is the midi notes. Midi notes and dimedis are really colorful, and they surprisingly have a feeling of back pressure, though that the flute doesn't have the chambers fully intact.
Yeah, it definitely has that kind of off-road sound, you know. You've got the very organic overtones and very kind of diverse sound where you've got the clear tones coming through and then a lot of really pleasant sort of harmonics pop up over the top. And I got the impression as you were playing it that you were kind of like finding finding the back pressure. Like it sounded like as you progressed, you were getting more and more
Yeah, well,
into it.
you have to generate it yourself, right? So there, I'm really having to give a lot of lower abdominal strength
Mm.
to get that sort of sound, right? To get that almost bubble. But if I go, there it is. It's easy. It has right away. So yeah, it's getting better as I'm starting to go for it. But yeah, and so as Eric was pointing out, it's like, are you using pinky for the third hole? It's like, yeah, I use pinkies for both of them because again, here, if I do this, I can cover the holes. But now if I go here it jumps, and it's because when I do that, one of the holes starts to open up and it shoots the note into con. If I hold it like this, I can cover that hole completely with the pinkies, and with my ring fingers, it's kind of doing like a modified piper's grip, and then that's the how I'm able to keep all of those notes in tune. So for me, if the holes were offset, it would be a flute that I would definitely be considering to add to my collection because then it would be something that I could play. If they were right here, just right there, it would be the perfect flute for me. Just having that little bit of offset there, the comfort of playing it, I'd be able to maneuver around and do all the techniques that I normally do. But here, because I have to use the pinkies, even something like koro koro, becomes a lot harder for me because I have to, anchor like this, and it's going to cause a lot of arm and wrist issues for me if I would to play something like this. That being said, though, if he had an offset one like this, I would definitely consider adding it to my collection. So if anybody's interested in owning a flute like this, just send me a message and maybe we can get you set up with one. So full on Hochiku flute. Honestly, very very impressive making skills here. Normally when I have somebody who sends me a flute, I go, all right, well they're kind of a hobbyist. This is beyond that. This guy is definitely a master craftsman. He probably has done a lot of woodwork in other areas because just the fine details to everything here, the how he's cleaned up the end pieces, like down here, this is so smooth. Like I think he had it almost feels like a there's resin on the outside, but there isn't anything there. He um he has just sanded down probably up to even like 1,000 or 2,000 grit, sort of thing. And Sven, I do know that he is a filmmaker, but I know he does a lot of woodworking too. So this is not somebody who has never done this stuff before. It is clear that he has done work in a wood shop before, because you don't just walk away with this type of skill in like the first round.
Well, it
So yeah.
looks like Svenja has actually got a flute from him,
Yep.
a 2.27
Yep. 2.27. Yep.
in B flat.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like Holchiku flutes go and stuff, I mean, he's done an incredible job, you know, figuring this thing out. And there are some nodal points that are left in. One thing I would probably encourage him to do is if he has the other thing here is if you look here, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 notes. If he had pieces that were 7 notes, so this one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be right there, right? So that won't work. But if they had some pieces that were 7 note, maybe getting rid of these bottom 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be here. This looks a lot closer to almost like a 1.8 actually. Yeah, this would have been a 1.8, 1.9, somewhere right in between there. And so with those nodes being in those specific points, you can control the how like the sound of the flute in like specific notes more readily. So I would encourage him to do that, but definitely keep making because this is really great stuff, and it's very hard to find Hochiku flutes made this well. Very
I
very
was
hard.
actually just discussing with another member of the studio on Discord yesterday about a Hochiku maker in Russia,
Yes.
and that we were debating, talking about how length is an issue for me because I just my fingers aren't very long, and that I would like to play a longer flute, but I really struggle to reach. My arms are long enough; it's the fingers that are the problem. And the studio member said, take a look at this one, and it was a 3.0, but it was it was somewhat shorter than most 3.0s,
Hmm.
um, just because it's such a wide bore. And so I
Ah,
was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. Like, does the width of the bore make it possible for you to have a flute that's pitched lower, but with less of a reach or less of a stretch?
yes. There you
Okay,
there you have
great answer.
it. Yeah, I like the straight ones, you know? Yeah, sometimes I'm a straight shooter.
This is great interview technique. Get a nice long setup question. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah,
All right.
yeah, but yeah, that is the case. It does work like that. So, again, if you're even interested in this flute, just shoot me an email through my website through taidushakuhachi.com or seanheadmusic.com, and send me an email, and maybe we can get you set up with a new flute here from Anton Tenri, Uruguay-based shakuhachi maker using locally sourced bamboo. And yep, it's a winner, all right. He's a great maker, and I'm looking
I
forward to
want to
seeing.
play it. I'm over for my lesson tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely, please do, and I think you'll enjoy it. So I think you'll enjoy it a lot. Okay,
Cool.
what else is on doc? Because that was my big thing for today that I wanted to do.
Okay. Well, there's one other in line with that discussion we were having earlier about when to practice.
Yes,
There's also been some discussion of the idea of practicing without your flute, like rehearsing without your flute.
like image
Um,
training.
yeah, and as our friend Jonan often talks about, uh, being able having a piece memorized and sort of playing the piece just with your breathing.
Hmm.
And he said, I remember when he first introduced this idea at the first festival that we had in Nara. He said, learn to practice without your flute, and just do it with your breathing, because someday you won't be able to play the flute. I was like, wow, that is
Hmm.
that is dark, but but yeah, it is something I've started doing, and it's actually I find it really useful. I was just curious what your thoughts were on it.
Yeah, well, I think it's like I mean, breathing has so many like benefits to it. Like for example, you don't die when you keep breathing. That's a good a positive part of breathing. But
Yeah, I think everyone can agree on that one.
yeah, that one's pretty not controversial. The um, but the way we breathe can also have major health benefits too. Like breathing properly and breathing deeply, is a great practice. And actually, I remember when I was doing some studies about how we breathe, and most of us breathe wrong. And I always found that to be kind of funny. It's like, yeah, you're breathing incorrectly, but it's just that shallow breathing that doesn't really go deep. That's why exercise is so helpful, because you have to breathe deeply into the bottom of the lungs, as it were, to really expand your lungs and open up the whatever the air ducts are called and whatever. But yeah,
Alveoli.
yeah, and yeah, this is definitely that your editor side always comes through when I'm looking for a word, and you're like, oh yeah, that really obscure word that we never use anymore. But I've had to edit a science textbook for middle school.
Yeah, I've actually there are some terms that have made their way into my daily speech that no one should use. So I'm a cautionary tale. Don't get too in love with your dictionary and your thesaurus.
Yeah. Well, that's actually one of the
I
interesting things about English language, especially when people take the English as a second language exam, and then
Yeah,
they're like, which word fits best? And like, none of them. Like this one
none of
works,
them.
but like you definitely, when making this exam, just took out a thesaurus and just picked a random word.
Yes, I had a professor. My wife and I went to the same university, and we had a professor who I still quote on a fairly regular basis. His name was Cedric Reverend, known to everyone as Rick Reverend, and his famous quote is, "The road to hell is paved with adverbs, some adjectives also." He was very cut and dry kind of writer. He sort of wanted you to say what you were trying to say and stop trying to be a poet. This is prose, you know.
Mm.
and it's definitely a problem in English because English is, it's not really just a language. It's a homogenization of like six languages. So we have an abundance of synonyms.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we're like a Frankenstein language because we, are borrowing from so many other languages: Hebrew, Greek, Latin, German, French. Yeah, I mean the list goes on. Dutch.
Sure. Yeah, I sometimes feel that being an editor, the process of being an editor is, I know it's very painful for the writers because, I mean, I sometimes do this to you, Sean.
Mhm.
You send me a text and I come to it with a weed whacker and and
Yeah.
it's, and the context, the content of it is still there. It's just, we take out all of the unnecessary adverbs.
Yeah.
I'm always saying to my children, what's the difference between I'm hungry and I'm very hungry?
Mm,
Really nothing. That adverb's not doing you any favors.
no.
You
Very is the
know,
worst word that you could possibly use. If like, because
really,
there is a
really is my biggest hated word. Really, I hate it.
because there is a difference between being uh famished versus being hungry.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
being hungry and very hungry is the same thing.
The only place where those words matter is in like science, where the term, like if you're talking about high frequency, very high frequency, ultra high frequency, in science, in that case, the word very actually has a numerical meaning attached to it. So
Mm.
there it makes sense. But in ordinary speech, no. And I've edited people who would write things like, it's really, really very, very important that you do. I'm like, "Ugh!"
That being said, it is really, really very, very important that you like and subscribe to this channel. So if you haven't hit that like
You
button
see,
yet, hit that
that
like
was an
button.
excellent use of both of those words. That is, in this case, that is correct. That is grammatically correct. The algorithm is really, really a bitch, and
One of my it reminds me of one of my favorite scenes from The Office is when Steve Carell goes, "Now always remember, always, for any reason, every time, always, no matter what." And he just keeps going with all these different ways to say the same thing. And that one always kills me. It always kills me when I see
yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah. I think that that show is one of the most quotable things that ever has been on television. There's,
I don't know.
yeah, we could take a whole.
A few good men is very quotable. So is in Apocalypse Today. We should try to maybe look up or at least figure out what is the most quoted movie of all time. Like, what do people quote the
I
most?
know what the most quoted piece of drama is of all time.
What's that?
It's Hamlet.
To be or not to be?
Yeah, it's not just to be or not to be. There's so many things from
Oh,
Hamlet.
like inside. Okay, being inside Hamlet. Hamlet itself is the most quoted thing.
Yeah, I mean, just even things that people aren't aware that they're quoting Hamlet. To thine own self be true, and things like that
Mm,
are from Hamlet. And it's sort of a trope in English lit study that the most quoted writer of all time is Shakespeare. I think you might be hard pressed to, I mean, whether Moses actually wrote the Bible, the first books of the Bible, or not is debatable, but you might be hard pressed with comparing him to in terms of sheer number of quotations to like the Mosaic books of the Bible.
mm, mm.
Uh, but in terms of like English writers, Shakespeare is usually considered to be the most quoted in history.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that. I mean, of course, people were not biblically literate even in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. That's a total, anachronism. Even one in one of the Vatican count, not the Vatican count. Actually, yes, maybe it was a Vatican council, but one of the doctors of the church were even saying that at the bare minimum, people need to go to confession and go to mass once a year. Like that was like it's like we at least need them to go once right? It wasn't a they're only allowed to go once, which is sometimes how my Protestant brothers and sisters like to frame that. No, it's please come to church at least once.
Yes.
So, but as Shakespeare has said in Othello, it is silliness to live when to live is torment, and then we have a prescription to die when death is our physician.
Very nice.
Yeah, you're very
That's a
welcome.
good one, and that's one that's not, usually if someone wants to quote Othello, it has something to do with the black ram tupping your ewe or something like
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, this has been literature nerd corner. Now back to our regular programming.
But I like quotations a lot. And I think that especially like to bring it to a Shakuhachi thing, I love this some of the stories that are written in the Taigen show. I love some of the
Mm,
stories that are written truthfully or not, but just nonetheless they're written in these extant documents that we have for Shakuhachi, and they're great to quote. One of the things too that I tell people a lot is that you should play shakuhachi outside, and playing out shakuhachi outside is just so important to your growth as a musician. And then I can point to the Taigen show where one of the court musicians who is going up to a sort of a festival for music. He brought a shakuhachi along and he played outside, and it was a great time. And
yeah,
the kids loved it too. The kids loved his shakuhachi playing. In some of the Hitayogiri documents, they also say that it's actually necessary in order to understand this music that you play it outside. So the being aware of the literature side of things, but whether Western or Japanese, is really helpful because there's just so much great wisdom that's been pinned down. And when we're talking about old documents that have stood the test of time, documents like that stand the test of time because they're important.
yes. Yes, I mean, when people ask a lot of times, how does something make its way into the canon of a certain genre or a certain type of literature? And I'm always reminded of the quote about what is poetry? Poetry is the best words in the best order.
Yes.
that's that's why it's famous. It's the best words in the best order. Actually, I'd like to bring a quote that can be attributed to Sean Taidu Head. That's one of my favorites. He says this to me at not every lesson, but almost every lesson. I'm done playing the piece that I'm working on for him, and he'll make a few comments. And usually the comments are something along the lines of, "Yeah, you've got the gist of it, but you just need to polish it more." And he'll say something along the lines of, "Yeah, like that, but like better."
Full of great adjectives and descriptive words. I mean, the profundity in that sentence shakes the core of your being, does it not?
It's life changing. Yeah, no, I mean you can't deny that you've said those exact words to me.
I have said those exact words to many a people, right? In the studio.
See,
Just
and
like
if
that,
he's feelings
but better.
if he's feelings really sassy, he'll be like, I mean, yeah, that's like that, but like don't suck.
But
Cool, thanks.
I will have to say, I only do that with my advanced students. I do not do that with my beginners. I would never do that to them. But you guys can handle it because you should be playing
Yeah,
better. Um,
yeah.
yes. But anyways, uh, I thought that threw me off a little bit. Now I have to regain myself of what I was actually going to talk about. But I guess I completely forgot after that. Now I'm all thinking about all the snappy things that people have said to me and the snappy things I've said to all of you guys.
That could be a whole live stream unto itself. We just accumulate a bunch of quotes, both modern and ancient, and compare them. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, we'll
But
say words of snappy wisdom. We'll do that. We'll do that next week.
okay, all right. Well, actually, one of the other quotes that's come up in our post just this past like 2 days ago is one that I've I don't know. I like this idea, but it also is it's a little touchy feely. It's a little new agey.
Hmm.
So see what you think about it. The idea is that hearing is actually a form of touch. because vibration in the air touches our eardrums, and our brain interprets that as what we call sound.
Hmm.
So, music then can be thought of as a sort of massage.
Yeah. So, like, the physics part of it is absolutely true, right? And so
Yes.
there is a sort of a sense of touch that's happening. But you know, that's just the way sound works. I mean, that's kind of my thing about it. But yeah, I think for some people, like it can definitely have that sort of like sort of intimate and whatever, like intimacy to it. But I think that this is where like like the work of Arthur Schopenhauer would come into play, which is that the actual syntax and the language of music conveys one's will to another person in such a high degree that that's what makes it so so beautiful, and you experience the sublime, and you're removed from your current, you know, living hell, as it were, all the suffering. So that art and music especially removes you from your suffering for a brief moment to enjoy the sublime.
Yeah. Where words fail, music speaks. That's
Hmm.
who said that? Was that Hans Christian Andersen? I think. Yeah. It's I the reason I like that the idea that music is a form of massage is not to get into the like kind of weird ASMR side of things, but um, I think there's definitely something to be said for music being one of the only ways that you can like really sort of reach out and touch people in a non-linguistic way, right? People that don't speak the same language, people that have different cultural expectations of music, that sort of thing. You can really convey things to people without having to deal with the syntax and the grammar and the vocabulary and unnecessary adverbs.
Yeah. Well, to quote Arthur Schopenhauer, you should say, "Treat a work of art like a prince. Let it speak to you first." And so I think
That's
that,
good.
yeah,
That's a good one. He was snappy. I wonder who his editor was.
he didn't have one. He was himself, and I can tell you why, because he has run-on sentences that go for 3 pages.
Yeah, the comma splice and the sentence that's just and and
Yeah, let me.
drives me crazy.
So let me because he has a book called Essays and Aphorisms, and so let me just read um one of his like like his thoughts, right? And this one is a more like complete one. When we read, another person thinks for us. We merely repeat his mental process. In learning to write, the pupil goes over with his pen what the teacher has outlined in pencil. So in reading, the greater part of the work of thought is already done for us. This is why it relieves us to take up a book after being occupied with our own thoughts. And in reading, the mind is, in fact, only the playground of another's thoughts. So it comes about that if anyone spends almost the whole day in reading, and by way of relaxation devotes the interval to some thoughtless pastime, he gradually loses the capacity for thinking, just as the man who always rides as to forget how to walk. This is the case with many learned person. They have read themselves stupid. So
Well, I mean, he tied it up nicely,
he did
but
he did tie it up nicely, but there was a lot in there that could have been shrunk.
yeah, that could use some bushwhacking there.
Absolutely. Got a weed whacker out back, and I got a gallon of gasoline. Let's get at it.
Yeah, it's interesting too to think about just how much people's attention spans have changed as well. We've been moving the whole 20th century. We've been moving towards shorter, more concise statements that are more easily digestible.
Hmm.
Long before the idea of the sound bite, which sort of I guess the sound bite sort of burst on the scene in the 90s.
Sure.
But long before that, we were moving in a direction where literature was just sentences were getting shorter, sentences were getting more direct and less flowery. So it's
Yeah. But I kind of I do find that interesting that in his time he calls that people read themselves stupid,
Yeah.
right? And one of the thing that's really interesting, I mentioned this in the course I taught today, is that for most terminal degrees, right, any PhD and masters, like if you got a master's in engineering, you are not required to take a course in logic in order to fulfill your degree.
Mm.
And so,
Yeah, well, I mean, in sociology, we didn't take a course specifically in logic, but we were required to take a course in kind of research methods, which is tangential to logic. I mean,
sure.
several courses in research methods actually,
Hmm.
and also courses in kind of the paradigmatic structures of science, because
Hmm.
sociology as a soft science is very concerned about looking sciency.
Yeah,
And so there's a lot of discussion about the scientific method and how it's actually should be applied, and understanding the various paradigms of the ages of science.
sure.
uh, but it's not exactly a straight logic class. Have
Hmm.
you ever taken like logical calculus or anything like that?
I've never taken logic in a mathematical sense, like what you would do with like Bertrand Russell. But I have
Yeah,
taken courses in like logic as a language and how to like create premise, and conclusion, and so
right.
on and so forth. So I've taken logic in that sense.
Well, I think most people don't understand, like syllogisms, like you're describing. I think most people don't understand what a syllogism is.
Well, because there
And
truly are syllogisms.
yes, and so, and that can be our spin-off podcast where you and I nerd out about philosophy for an hour. And I'm sure the people that came here for Shakuhachi are like, "Shut up, dude! How do I play Sumeri?"
Well, what is Sumeri? What does it bring to you? And to bring it from a Freudian perspective, how does it make you feel? And why is it about your mother?
All right, and I'm going to take the materialist approach. Exactly what frequencies are we talking about when we talk about Sumeri? Because we're talking about a certain band of megahertz. I don't know what the number would be, but we could get out the oscilloscope and figure that out.
And those waves and bands at a certain frequency are massaging your ears.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it. Bring it. See,
because
you didn't think we could bring it full circle, and we did.
that's right. Because music speaks to the heart, and
That's
now we're not talking about philosophy anymore. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I thought a way to a man's heart was always through their stomach, but apparently, and for some people, it's through the ears.
Actually, it's like just below the sternum, up and to the right.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there it is.
Mhm.
Well, and very interesting derailing, and somehow the train got right back on the tracks, and here we are to
That's right.
Shakachi for the last 10 minutes of it. So, with the last 10 minutes
And
of
we're right
this,
back.
I want to encourage you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay up to date with things that are happening. We have the membership going on, and new videos are being made on the membership at the highest level. There's hundreds of videos there to learn how to play shakuhachi. You get a bunch of resources, you get books and manuscript papers and all this kind of stuff, all digitally accessed through YouTube on the membership. So join the membership today. As far as we have some new flutes that are up online as well, so go ahead and check out those at seanheadmusic.com. And we have a couple of really exciting videos coming up. One of the dragon flute review. So if you're interested in seeing the before and after of this absolutely gorgeous dragon flute maquille piece, go ahead and check that out. Hey, here we go. We have a question in the live chat really quickly. Tony Bowman, sorry, I just joined your live stream. No need to apologize. Welcome in. Make sure you watch the ads all the way through. I got a question. I just bought a shakuhachi that's more than 110 years old, but it's very thin and it's very hard for me to get a sound out of. Yes. Well, there wasn't a question there, but I understand the question. Um, so this is also a very old flute. This is maybe somewhere between 200 and 300 years old. And as you can see, it's a thin bore. Now, not all old flutes were thin bored, but um, uh, you know, here we are. These are going to be more difficult to play because the Utaguchi is more shallow. And so these would be really good for like playing just honkyoku and stuff like that. Yeah, and but they are harder to play. The hole sizes are smaller. They're a little bit more finicky, and they're more prone to cracks too. So if you have a crack in the flute and you might not even notice it, that's and that sound is leaking air. It won't make a sound if the crack is bad enough. Lua says, "I just arrived. Was there Shakachi playing earlier in the stream?" Um, contrary to popular belief, there was actually Shakachi playing in today's live stream. Um,
We do actually talk about Shakuhachi occasionally.
Occasionally, we do Shakuhachi stuff, and we play and give examples and whatever. So yeah, but anyways, yeah. So the older flutes can be really really difficult to play. I my sort of recommendation straight out is just do one of the beginner flutes from Yozan. They're made to be played, like they're easier to play and get a hang of. There's also cheaper options that are plastic models. So if you don't want to put a lot of money out for it, then you can do something like the U. But for me, as a bamboo lover, I want the real thing in my hands. So I always recommend students for that. So check out my website, seanheadmusic.com, or you can go to tairyushakuhachi.com. It's the same website. Go check out the store. We have a bunch of flutes there for sale.
Well, and this 110-year-old flute, the first thing that pops into my mind is just what's the condition of it, and
Yes.
sometimes old flutes need a little bit of love in the bore because
Yes.
you may have accumulations of dust and dirt and things in there that are so caked in that just running a dry cloth through it might not be enough. And so, running a cloth through it that's been dampened ever so slightly with a little bit of vinegar and water might help clean out the bore, and you may find that that will make it a tiny bit easier to play.
Absolutely. Well, I think actually cleaning the holes out is a great practice that people should continuously do because you shed your skin and that builds up in the holes of the flute. So please clean your instruments.
Yes, by all means,
Mhm.
and don't forget, don't neglect the finger holes as well. Q-tip in there once in a while, because
Absolutely.
that's really a place where the oils collect, and that makes the skin cells stick to it.
Yep. Distilled vinegar and water, 50-50 base. You can use that to clean the inside and outside of your flute. It's a great way to clean it and prevent mold.
Yeah, and if you've got a 110-year-old flute, take a good look at it and make sure that it doesn't need to be sort of rehydrated in any way.
Hmm.
It could be the type of thing that it's been well stored, but more than likely it's spent a long period of time not being in a properly humidified environment. And so make sure that you keep it in a plastic bag and that you humidify it with your breath before putting it away,
Absolutely.
and that will allow the flute to kind of get back to a proper level of humidity.
Tony also asked as well if I've played a 2.9 or bigger. Well, you're in luck because most of my recent CDs that I've released are all on. Well, most of it's on 3.0 stuff. So if you go to Spotify, you can type in Sean Taidu Head, and I'm going to give you my link, my artist link here. And you can listen to a bunch of stuff that's on a variety of sizes of flutes. These are 40 tracks. The bulk of it is all classical shakuhachi music, and then there are a few contemporary pieces that I composed, which are on the first CD. There's one track, and then on the fourth CD, there's like two or three as well. So yeah, go ahead and take a listen to those. And one thing that I would recommend for all of you to do is just let that Spotify playlist just keep playing. Like just you can mute it, just let it run, and just keep adding it to like an eternal playlist. So just the plays just really skyrocket up. Um, those royalty checks are very low, very very low.
I also just threw up Yozan's link there for anyone who is looking for a new flute or is a beginner and is looking for a flute that's a little easier to play. Yozan Beginner is one of the best ways that you can get started on your shakuhachi journey. And if
Mhm.
you're playing with an old flute or kind of a strange flute that you found on eBay and you're really struggling with it, you'll be shocked how much easier it is to play a flute that's kind of tuned for the beginner and also tuned to our modern sensibilities.
Absolutely. We are getting a new order from Yozland, having a bunch of new beginner flutes that are going to be up on the website. So that order should be coming in pretty soon. So we'll also have a new video coming up of new beginner flutes that are going to be available. So if you want to know what the flute's going to sound like and everything, then just wait around a little bit longer, and we'll have some a new video up showcasing those instruments, and you will not be disappointed. I always when he sends me a batch, I don't pick all of them. I only pick the ones that I feel are the best, and then I send the other ones back. And so those are like the rejects. But so that way you have confidence in your purchase that you're getting an instrument that you've heard it played, verified by a professional, and gets my highest recommendation.
Yeah, and I know that it's difficult for a lot of people who are new to, or understand that such a huge amount of variance in quality when basically you're talking about a bamboo stick with five holes.
Mhm.
but there really is a huge difference, and I threw up another link there for you where one of Sean's videos where he discusses the idea of why some flutes are inexpensive and why some flutes are quite expensive, and what the
Absolutely.
work is that goes into creating those.
Yeah, a lot of times people ask me for like, how long does it take Yozan to make a flute? And I say 55 years. Because the thing is that to create a flute of that level, it requires, the decades of experience in order to render something like that. But yeah, like in reality, one flute takes about 3 months. If it was a jinashi, it would probably take anywhere between half a year or to a year. So it just depends on the instrument itself. But yeah, they do take quite some time to make.
And of course, that's not including the drying time, the curing time
Yeah.
from when the stave was cut.
Oh yeah. So
Uh,
yeah, you have to add 5 years onto that. So five
yeah,
years just to get the bamboo ready. So
yeah. So you're looking at 5 to 10 years total when to getting one perfect.
absolutely
It's quite quite an
seasoned
endeavor.
properly. All right. So I believe that gives us a way to now exit out. So Linus, why don't you walk us out of here?
All right, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, join us on Discord and Row 410.